Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are taking a little detour from our usual heavy deep dives because we are doing an explainer on a story that is equal parts fascinating, hilarious, and just deeply, deeply tragic. We're unpacking a legendary story from a Korean radio show, and let me tell you, it serves as the ultimate cautionary tale of DIY gone horribly wrong. So, get comfortable, maybe grab a snack, because this is a wild ride. Okay, let's dive into this. We always hear that DIY projects are a fantastic way to save a few bucks, right? I mean, you watch a 5-minute tutorial online, buy some cheap supplies, and suddenly you're a plumber or a carpenter, or in today's case, an esthetician. But how exactly does a completely innocent desire to save some cash on summer grooming escalate into flashing sirens, an emergency room visit, and a genuine medical mystery? Well, let's get into it. To really understand the catastrophe, we first have to understand the motivation. Because every good cautionary tale starts with a hopeful hero, and ours is the original storyteller's youngest sister-in-law. Picture the scene. It was the summer before last, and she was absolutely determined to make this her best season yet. She had grand plans to go on a summer vacation with her friends, and she had one solitary, shining goal. She was going to wear a bikini. This wasn't just a casual thought. It was a total mission. She was fully committed to the dream of a perfect summer on the beach. And to her immense credit, her preparation was intense. She went on a strict diet, completely transformed her habits, and achieved incredible weight loss success. The bikini body was officially secured. She was ready. However, there was one final stubborn obstacle standing between her and her beachside debut: body hair. Now, obviously, we all have it. It's completely natural. But for her, it was a major roadblock. Specifically, she had some noticeable dark hair on her legs, her armpits, and, crucially for this story, a little treasure trail leading down her belly. If she was going to rock that bikini, she felt this hair absolutely had to go. This brings us to the moment where the trouble really begins. One day, her friend comes over, showing off her impossibly smooth, perfectly hairless legs and arms. The friend proudly announces that she just went to a professional waxing salon and got completely smoothed out. Our hopeful hero is amazed. The results are flawless, so naturally she asks the golden question: how much did that cost? And the friend drops the number: 200,000 Korean won. Now, for some context, that's a pretty hefty sum for a beauty treatment. It's roughly equivalent to around $150, depending on the exchange rate. For our soon-to-be DIY esthetician, who had likely already spent a good chunk of change on her new summer wardrobe and vacation bookings, this number was a massive deterrent. 200,000 won was simply too expensive. It was a luxury she just couldn't justify. So she does what any modern, resourceful person does when faced with an expensive service. She turns straight to the internet. She begins furiously searching for alternatives and, boom, strikes gold. She finds a strong hair removal wax online. The instructions seem super simple. Just apply, let it dry, and peel. And the absolute best part? The price tag. A mere 38,000 won. Now, what's really interesting about comparing these two options is that it perfectly illustrates the ultimate psychological trap. On one hand, you have the expensive, sterile, professional option, performed by a trained expert. On the other, a cheap DIY kit completely dependent on her own amateur skills. The temptation of saving over 160,000 won completely blinded her to the inherent risks of pouring hot, hardening liquid onto her bare skin. I mean, the temptation was simply too great, and she immediately clicked purchase. A few days later, the fateful package arrives at her doorstep. She unboxes her 38,000 won miracle cure, ready to completely transform herself. But as we'll see, the initial success she experiences is exactly what leads to her ultimate downfall. Overconfidence is a really dangerous thing. Let's break down her procedure step by step. First up, the legs. She applies the sticky liquid, waits for it to harden, and rips it off. It's painful, sure, but entirely bearable. Success! Next, the armpits. She applies it again. This time, tearing it off actually brings tears to her eyes, but she looks in the mirror and sees perfectly smooth, baby-soft skin. At this point, her confidence is just skyrocketing. She actually laughs to herself, mocking her friend for spending 200,000 won when she achieved the exact same results for a fraction of the cost. But here is the crucial turning point. Her original goal was just to remove the hair on her belly. She applies the wax there, and it comes off easily. But flushed with victory, she gets greedy. She thinks, well, since I'm already doing this, why not clean up everything down below for the bikini? So she takes the liquid wax and applies a generous, thick layer deep into her most sensitive, intimate areas. And with that, she has officially crossed the point of no return. This brilliantly illustrates the horrific gap between expectation and reality. Her expectation was simple. She'd wait a few minutes, peel off the wax, and reveal beautiful, bikini-ready skin. But the grim reality was a physics problem she hadn't anticipated at all. Because she applied the liquid wax so thickly and in such an awkward position, gravity completely took over. The liquid seeped incredibly deep into her intimate areas, grabbing onto skin and hair, and then it hardened. And I don't mean into a flexible, peelable strip. It hardened into a rigid, immovable block. It was literally like she had poured quick-drying cement onto her lower body. When she tried to grab an edge to peel it, it wasn't just a stinging sensation. It felt like her actual flesh was going to be ripped away. Suddenly, her triumphant DIY beauty session turns into a scene of absolute, unadulterated panic. She is trapped in her bathroom, half naked, with a literal block of cement attached to her anatomy. And the physical discomfort is rapidly evolving into a full-blown medical emergency. Let's move through the timeline and see how this builds, because the meltdown escalated with terrifying speed. At T0, she applies the wax thickly, feeling like an absolute genius. By 10 minutes in, the wax has completely solidified. She tries to pull it, realizes it's impossible, and the real panic sets in. But then, 15 minutes in, biology calls. She has to pee. Because of the hardened block of wax obstructing everything, the result is catastrophic. The stream hits the hardened wax and creates a disastrous, multi-directional spray, acting basically like a broken sprinkler head in the bathroom. It's just a mess everywhere. By the 30-minute mark, her spirit is completely broken. She is sitting on the bathroom floor, sobbing uncontrollably, and has to make the absolute most humiliating phone call of her entire life, dialing 119 for an ambulance. The paramedics arrive, find her essentially fused together from the waist down, and carefully load her into the ambulance. She is rushed straight to the OB/GYN department of the emergency room, and when the attending doctor finally assesses the situation, they utter a sentence that no patient ever wants to hear. In all my years as a doctor, I've never seen a case like this. The rescue operation that follows is the absolute peak of humiliation. She had to waddle into the ER in this bizarre, awkward stance. She is placed under the glaring lights of an operating table. Because the wax is so deeply embedded and hardened, they can't just dissolve it. The bewildered doctor has to painstakingly, piece by piece, chip away at the hardened wax block. And they aren't using beauty salon tools, folks. They are using surgical tweezers and an actual scalpel to carefully separate the cement-like wax from her highly sensitive skin. The physical pain was likely intense, but the sheer, agonizing embarrassment of the situation is truly off the charts. Thankfully, the medical professionals managed to remove the wax without causing any permanent severe injury. But the ultimate takeaway from this whole ordeal is simple. Please, for the love of everything, leave complex procedures to the experts, because DIY shortcuts almost always have hidden costs. And let's look at the lingering physical consequences she had to endure. Not only did she completely fail to get that perfect bikini body for her vacation, but the aftermath of the botched waxing and the surgical removal caused the hair to grow back thicker and coarser than before. It grew back so stubbornly that the stiff hairs actually poked right through the fabric of her underwear, causing constant irritation. Because of this, she was forced to walk in a bizarre crouched, bow-legged position for weeks just to avoid the friction. Her entire dream of strutting confidently down a beach was destroyed by her attempt to save a little cash. We've traced this incredible journey from a simple desire for a bikini body straight to an operating table surrounded by confused doctors. It perfectly highlights how the temptation to save money can blind us to catastrophic risks. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you see a cheap DIY alternative for something that usually requires a licensed professional, is saving those few bucks really worth the risk of losing your dignity in the ER? Think carefully before you click Add to Cart. Thanks for joining me for this wild ride. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you next time.